health facilities to be on alert. Outbreak of suspected lassa fever in one of the regions there. Of course, quite a major worrying development for stakeholders in the health sector. Ghana ready for mining hub. That's according to the Lands and Natural Resources Minister Jinapo. And also in the front page, Ghana, Mozambique condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Quite few leaders on the continent have condemned Russia for what is happening in Ukraine. Of course, it's still a developing issue in that part of the world. Tourism Ministry partners City of New York, the growth sector, and that story is also in page 24 of the Daily Graphic newspaper. You want to read more on that, grab a copy. The Ghanaian Times, Tuesday, I will support Ghana to become Africa's tourism hub. And that story has the picture of the tourism minister with the visiting, more or less, the visitor that we have who is hoping to help Ghana to improve a tourism sector. Of course, it has huge potential. It can rake in foreign exchange earnings and also generates revenue in the midst of COVID-19 and the global supply shocks that has resulted in countries having some fiscal challenges. You read more on that story, page 16 of the paper. Economy rebounds strongly, growth right, and that's according to the Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison. And also Ghana, Mozambique condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, page 17 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Read more if you want to have a better appreciation of that story. Creating economic model focus on Africa's interests, and that's according to President Akufo-Addo, who charged state financial institutions to work in the interest of developing the African economy. Audit Service wins award. See Something, Say Something campaign launched in the midst of rising or increasing threats of terrorism to Ghana. We've seen the sub-region having a lot of challenges regarding this development, and the country is working to beef up its security in that regard so that we avert any possible attack. Also, at the AGM African Development Bank in Accra, let's develop African economic model to serve our interest, and that's according to President Akufo-Addo. And you see the Tanzanian president also in the picture, the Prime Minister of Ivory Coast in the picture. They are working or having a discussion regarding improving the performance of the African economy in the midst of global challenges, and of course what the bank can do to support it. The Office of the Special Prosecutor charges MCE nominee, and that story is also fully captured in there. The Office of the Special Prosecutor has again also opened investigation into the Achimota Forest saga, one of the issues we'll be looking at on today's edition of the program. As nation battles floods, demolish structures on water courses, President direct MDCs. As to how this would be implemented, it has become subject of legal kind of arguments, whether it has any legal basis and what could be done at the local governance level to ensure that this is executed, and we do not build to block waterways, and which results in the floods that we often see, especially this time of the season. MPs, staff must lead in asset declaration. Speaker Bagbin, and that story is fully captured, page 16 of the Daily Graphic paper. At the unveiling of ultra-modern dredges of dredge masters, demolish buildings on waterways, President orders MMDCAs, DAs, and that story also has been in the newspapers. Former PPA boss, other granted bail. The investigation, that's the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and also the fact that it has pressed some charges. MPP regional elections, surprises await candidates. Today's edition of the Daily Graphic, Ashanti Central must-watch regions We'll be live on ground to bring you up to date what will be happening regarding the MPP regional elections. Stay with us on our subsequent bulletins. Special prosecutor investigates John's estate. That story is fully captured. Page 20 of the Daily Graphic. Ghana hosts Arab African Investment Conference June 1. And Parliament is broke according to the Speaker. He is directing the Finance Minister to appear to give an account of how COVID-related expenditure and the funds received were expended, and also asking the to support the work of Parliament to ensure that it doesn't work without any sort of proper allocation of funds to help it execute its mandate. Let's start with the discussion, in the course of which we'll be telling you more of the headlines that were stories that were captured in the front pages of the papers. We'll start with the security situation, but I'll first introduce my guest for today's conversation. In the studio with me is Ayariga Osman, who is a member of the NDC communication team. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
And on Zoom, we have Dr. Bonaa, a security analyst, to help us appreciate what Ghana is faced with regarding the security threat and how this can be tackled. Doc, if you can hear me, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. I can hear you. Good morning to your viewers, and good morning to the panelists, my co-panelists in your studio. I heard Mr. Ayariga.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. We'll soon be joined by Geoge Ayisi, who is a member of the MPP communication team, and of course the director of NADMO in charge of communications, to help us with this conversation. But let's start with the national security, because the ministry has launched a citizen awareness campaign dubbed See Something, Say Something campaign to encourage people to report suspicious acts of terrorism in the country. The campaign aims to encourage the public to be vigilant of the activities of suspicious characters and reports in the wake of increasing terrorism threats in the country. It follows the spike in terrorist attacks in the West African sub-region, with some as 5 kilometers away from Ghana's borders. And this has, of course, generated a lot of discussions and worries also. And we are encouraged to report any sort of suspicious activities so that it will help the security agencies to tackle any sort of threats and ensure the stability of the country. We'll start with you, Dr. Bonaa, on this issue. If you can help us appreciate the kind or the nature of threats that we are dealing with and why this has dominated the news space in the last few weeks.
Oh yes, thank you very much. We are dealing with a threat that is not only probably linked, a threat that you say it's not just Ghana that should be concerned. It's a threat that even the superpowers have not been able to deal with. You can talk about the US, Britain, Germany, all of them have been on high alert, 24/7, they don't sleep, to ensure that, their homeland or their territory is safe from terrorists. Even with that, we are aware of terror attacks in some European countries, including the infamous 9/11 that took place in the US. And so if you come to our own backyard, a lot of the terror attacks that are taking place now in the world, almost 50% of them are actually taking place in the Sahel. And it's so worrying that as we speak, yesterday, as many as 50 civilians were gunned down or killed by suspected jihadists in Burkina Faso, in a village called Majori or so. 50 civilians massacred. And so this is how close this is to home. You know that of Togo, and so it is a very serious threat that no nation should joke with. No nation should treat it with an added flavor to make it look like it's entertainment, just like we saw the launch of the campaign against terrorism launch. Some of us got worried because then it didn't give us room for comfort. You could have done better. And so if you ask me, it's a Herculean task that we are faced with, and all over the world, those are, in academic and all that, researchers like myself will tell you, literature supports it, that the Sahel has become a fertile ground for terrorists. So this is what I can say.
Look, I'll come back. Let me pick the initial thought of Mr. Ayariga also in the studio. Ayariga, you've heard the security analysts affirming that indeed we are dealing with serious threats regarding the security situation, looking at what's happening in the Sahel. Do you think we have done enough in terms of sensitizing the public to become aware so that they can participate effectively in the campaign that has just been launched?
Well, good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. First and foremost, I think government in itself should have done better in a sense that government and especially the National Security Secretariat ought to have gathered enough intelligence, and that is what they should be doing. They should be interested in gathering so much intelligence across the length and breadth of this country. It's just, fighting terrorism is not about slogans. It's not about media warfare. It's not about going out there to announce that we are fighting terrorism. It's an art that needs serious security intelligence. And if you miscalculate, obviously you may just give out so much information which the terrorists can decide to work with. So I thought that being the National Security Minister, having the National Security apparatus, they would have been up and trying to gather so much intelligence, having their operatives all over the country, disguised in normal mufti people walking about, so they can gather so much intelligence. Because trust me, if you observe what is happening around the West African region, especially what's happening in Burkina Faso, you look at Cote d'Ivoire, you look at Togo, you look at Niger, you look at all those countries, you will see that it's a fertile ground for any terrorism activity to be able to occur. So I thought our national security government at large would have taken it more seriously than actually just making it look like it's a media advertisement or trying to sensitize the people. Yes, you can one way or the other try to alert your citizens, but I think most importantly it's about intelligence. When you talk about terrorism and security issues, the key ingredient so far as security is concerned is intelligence. But if we let me be a bit political. If a government comes to power and you have foot soldiers parading themselves as national security operatives with very little training and very little exposure so far as security is concerned, then I don't know the kind of intelligence you would gather out there or the government will be able to pick so far as security is concerned. We all saw what happened at the Ayammah West Wagon by-election, how national security operatives were brutalizing people. These are the kind of people we have as national security operatives. So if you have these kind of people who feel that being a national security is all about muscles and looking very stout, then it's sad. So government ought to invest so much so far as security is concerned. But most importantly, and what's even intriguing, is that aside from the terrorist attacks and the potential for it to happen in Ghana, you realize that we in ourselves living in this country, we are under serious security attacks. So far as the economy in itself is concerned, we are sitting on a security time bomb, and that in itself is what the national security ought to look at critically. Unemployment in itself is a security threat. Bad governance in itself is a security threat. High cost of living is a security threat. So all of these things breeds a fertile ground for any kind of security threat to happen. So if you have this happening in your country and you have the external forces, then the external forces are able to feed on the internal fertile grounds, and at the end of the day, going to have a security mishap. So most importantly, as we try to look at the external forces, government should also concentrate on the internal factors such as high cost of living, unemployment, high cost of buying and purchasing of goods and items. So if government doesn't even look at the internal factors and we go out looking at the external factors, then trust me, the external factors will not even come into the country, but the internal factors themselves will serve as a security threat. And that may just...
I'll come back. Don't bring in Adam Bonaa. We stay a while with him because of his background as a security analyst to help us appreciate. Dr. Bonaa, is it true that these terrorists could exploit the grievances of indigents to launch whatever they want to advance in the country if government does not attend to of those pressing needs?
Well, yes, it's correct. If you look at all over the world, how these terrorists, their modus operandi, they come into a country, they would infiltrate every, sector of the country. They go into areas where the people are so impoverished. They go into areas where, the people probably are suffering, and most often than not, they purport to want to provide them the basic necessities of life. You go into some of our, especially in our most impoverished communities along the northern border. When I say along the northern belt, and that is where these things are happening, because that is much closer to the Sahel. People don't have water. Indigents there most often don't have water. They drink with animals. They don't have proper shelter, don't have proper food. There's just one farming season in most of these areas. And so after the farming season, if you are not able to stock, enough food produce, you are going to go hungry. The other ingredient they also exploit has to do with conflict. You take the issue of Boko that has been raging for, a very long time. And you know that the way, especially the northern belt, you have a lot of indigents who are, who have relations, in that side of town or that side of another country. And so you go to Hamile, you have people literally who are in Ghana, and yet probably they have brothers and sisters in Hamile. You go to Boku, you have, some Kusasis who obviously have brothers and sisters in Burkina, and you would have some Mamproses who would have brothers and sisters there. You go, and it's all over the place. And so once there is conflict and the leadership, aren't able to deal with these types of excesses, what happens is that the bad people come in. And we've already received message about some, people crossing into the Boku area, probably either to sell firearms or to trade in other things and cause more confusion. And so, yes, what Mr. Ayariga did say is perfectly legit. But there's something that the national security has done that I would want to articulate. When I say I would want to put it out there and say, I read that a lady musician, I think one Gifty, has been appointed as anti-terrorism campaign ambassador. I don't know the lady. I've only seen her videos and I think her songs out there. But those who are listening and those of you who know her, kindly tell her that she should go and rescind that ambassadorial position. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world that civilians are appointed to be anti-terrorism ambassadors. Those who perpetuate this, barbarity or perpetuate this, chaos, kill people, would usually do their own profiling. So if you appoint such a person, you are only asking the bad people to profile her and go after her, either within this country or outside this country. And when you are talking about terrorism and those who, engage in terrorism, it is not somebody who is wearing a balaclava covering the face, or somebody who is wearing, a kaftan, or somebody who is wearing a hijab. It's gone beyond that. It's gone beyond that. You have history and literature tells us that there are soldiers who have been who have been recruited into, these cells. There are teachers who have been recruited. There are other people who have been recruited. And so mine is that I don't know what went into the decision to get someone like her, a musician, to be an ambassador. And I'm not sure what went into the decision of her accepting to be an ambassador. She's only opening herself up, probably, to be put in harm's way. You cannot be put in an armored tank and be driven around wherever you go to. And these people are everywhere. The deaths that took place in Togo recently, 8 soldiers were killed. If you go to Burkina, there have been soldiers who have been massacred. If you go to Niger, soldiers. So you are talking about people who have been trained in the act of warfare. If these people have been massacred, brutally killed by terrorists, our leaders should think and ask themselves, what would let them actually, come up with the idea of engaging a civilian? And the civilian didn't have advisors who would advise her that no, long before probably, whoever appointed you is no longer there. These people are going to continue to profile you as somebody you should after.
Okay.
So mine is that it was a wrong decision, and I would urge her to rescind the decision, to accept that publicly, so that if there is a way that they want to sensitize the public, they should do it. But it tells you a bit, how probably we are not serious about what should inform sensitizing the populace of this country.
Okay.
This is not COVID, where you put musicians and the rest. This is people carrying firearms and killing people. And you appoint a musician, and she accepts that I'm going to be a campaign ambassador. So that is one. And so mine is that I needed to do this before I forget, because it's something that I meant to write on and to speak on, and
well noted.
Your station is, and so kindly articulate it. If you know her, let her know that she should rescind the acceptance publicly, so that no one is going to be profiled in this country. No one will be profiled when you leave this country. I don't know her, but I think that she's a Ghanaian. Even if she's not, nobody should be put in harm's way. So going back to what I was saying, whatever Ms. Ayariga said is legit, but then mine is that, yes, the human security. I mean, if you look at young people of this country, unemployment is everywhere. As I speak to you, I am also the vice chairman of the Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry. Government hasn't paid contractors. 99% of contractors are not working. They've withdrawn their machinery from construction sites. If you are talking about 6% of GDP, I mean, that is what the construction sector contributes. And these contractors are not paid for works done. It tells you that if these contractors were one of the large employers in this country, it tells you there's a security vacuum. The woman who would cook at the construction site is home. So that it becomes easy for infiltrators, the bad people, to come in and recruit some of these people, give them handouts, and get them to cause mayhem. And so we need to look at the fight against, the fight against terrorism, not from just the security point of view, but also the economic point of view. If people are economically empowered, young people and what have you are empowered, you go to a factory, you are tired. You go to a construction site, you are tired. If someone gave you 100 or 5,000 Ghana cedis to go and shoot people, you would think twice, because you don't even have that energy to go do it. So I think these are some of the things that we have to be looking at, apart from the security areas that probably some of us have spoken about.
Dr. Bonaa, there are concerns about lack of coordination in communicating the alert to the public. Do you share in this concern, and what should be done to address it?
You are talking about just lack of communication. In fact, we pray, touch wood, that nothing happens to us. Nothing happens to us. But I think we haven't learned lessons enough. We should have learned from the underground train bombings in the UK. I was resident there when it took place. The US 9/11 and what have you. Let's even look at what, apart from the communication, but communication will trigger down to response. Just look at it. When an accident happens in Ghana on, let's say, Accra, Kumasi highway, or even motorway, the police would usually rush there, obviously the MTTD, to direct traffic. They get there and only realize that there are a lot of injuries. So they call the ambulance. The ambulance is time to arrive. Then the ambulance get there and realize that people are trapped in the wreckage. They don't have the grinding machines to cut the metals and free people. Then the ambulance, the fire service people will come in. They have the grinding machine and the skills to do it. And so it tells you that we still don't have that coordinated agency where when something happens and a button is pressed, all other agencies are activated because they are working in one response room. And so mine is that, yes, if you look at it, they are not properly coordinated. You have the coordinator of the National Security Ministry saying something else. The minister is saying something else. But I would say that all this that is going on also helps us to probably interrogate and try to shape in how things must be done. Some of us called for a hotline to provide. Hopefully we have it. We are hearing their prank calls. And I say, hello, in this day and age, you shouldn't worry about prank calls. A lot of us now have our numbers linked to our IDs. The guy called. The next day, National Security is there with the media arresting him and cautioning him that if you did that again, you'll be arrested. The general public whom I want to do it will learn lessons from it. Today, as you drive through Accra, I'm using that as an example. Those days around East Legon, Spintex and the rest, those who drive big cars would put their hazard light on and go through. But when a certain Dr. Ekufu Dampari was appointed to be the IGP, he's managed to win that psychological warfare by making sure that even if the general public took a picture of your vehicle coming out of the traffic and trying to face other vehicles, they will arrest you and prosecute you. Now, as you drive through town, you don't see too many people doing it, which is good. So I think let's learn from previous experiences. But, well, as I speak, I won't say it is that bad. If you go towards the Northern Belt, there are some, forwarding bases that are being built for the military and all that, which is very good. Immigration is getting their share. The police is getting their share. But it is a quantum some of us are talking about. Mr. Ayariga spoke about intelligence. You see, intelligence is everything in security. Once your intelligence is dead on arrival, chances are that they will strike you and you will never know who did, and that will be the case. And so intelligence is what is used in fighting any type of crime, including terrorism. So as far as I'm concerned, they've started opening up, and is the reason why we are able to interrogate it and hope to shape policy as we move forward.
Doc, very finally with you, it appears that religious groups have an important role to play in neutralizing these threats. And I was wondering, for example, the Muslim community, what they should be doing at the prayer centers and in their engagements to help prepare our minds and to encourage worshippers to report any sort of suspicious activity they may have seen.
Well, I think it's important. Some days ago, I think the National Security or so, some personnel went to the National Chief Imam, which is very good. But mine is that instead of doing we come to you approach, let's come out with one policy framework for large gatherings, one security framework for large gatherings. Because these people would usually look out for market areas where there are a lot of people. They look out for parks. They look out for, entertainment centers, sports, stadiums and all that when there are people packed. They look out for, buses. they look out for churches, mosques, they look out for areas where people, converge to have something done. It could be religious or tradition or anything. So I was expecting to see a blueprint that says that this is what you should have, just like we did with the EIs, for COVID. If from now on, this is what the policy each church, each mosque must put in place. Once that is done, at this level, one of the things I have been asking is that what level are we when it comes to the terror alerts? Which level? Are we in green, yellow, or red? So if it is red would usually encompass certain things. So the moment the National Security Minister says, from tomorrow we are in a state of, the alertness is red, extreme, it means that if I have to come to GBC is probably the largest, is the largest media facility in the country. If I am coming to GBC, I'm expecting the personnel at GBC to first search me, to run scanners and make sure I'm not carrying any firearm. It means that by the time I get to GBC, military and police officers would have been deployed. And so red would encompass certain things. Yellow would usually encompass another set of things that would form part of the policy. Green means that, we are in a state of alert, but it's relaxed. I can go to GBC, the soldiers will be there, but they will let me because they have downgraded it. But unfortunately, we haven't done that yet. Some of us are expecting that our leaders will do that now because then, like I said, it is coming so close to us, and we haven't put in this pragmatic, practicalized measures. This is how it has been done per the literature that some of us are aware of, per the practice some of us are aware of. It's been done all over the country. But just the sensitization alone will not help. But I would say it is important that churches and mosques should begin to, depending on how big you are and how resourceful you are, put in full, body scanners. These are scanners that when you go through, it's like the airports. I mean, it's one of the areas that are specializing. You walk through, anything you are carrying, it will scan you to make sure you are not carrying any weapon, anything that is a you cannot go through, any chemical cannot, things like that. Definitely, if the person decided to sneak in some chemical, weapon or something that could be used to disable and kill a lot of people, it is picked up. So I think that the churches and the mosques who are listening to us and facilities like, the sports centers, as we speak, we are still, talking about sports. I don't even know how involved the guys from the GFA, the guys from the sporting world in Ghana are involved. What training are we giving them to let them know that from henceforth, we are going to use maybe 2-3 doors where there are body scanners. We have specialized teams that are going to be deployed. We expect everybody to behave. So mine is that, but looking at how close this thing is, thankfully, Ghana, we have not had any of this. We have to continue to push.
Okay.
We don't want to see it, but it is easier said than done, as we say. And so I would want to see more in our quest to ensure that the bad guys don't hit us when we don't expect it.
Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Adam Bonaa is a security analyst, has been helping us to appreciate the nature of the threats that we are dealing with as a country and what should be done to avert any sort of terrorist attack in the country. We are glad to have George Ayisi in the studio. George is a member of the MPP communication team and also the director of communications at NADMO. George, it's been a while having you on the show.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Sorry for being late this morning.
I understand. We're discussing with Ayariga and Dr. Bonaa the nature of the threats that we are dealing with as a country, and what for now the conversation is around what should we do, or what should we be doing to ensure that we avert any sort of attack on us as a country? And from the point of communication, are we engaging citizens enough for them to become more aware and to report any sort of suspicious activity so that we can quickly come in to neutralize any sort of threats?
Yeah, thank you, my brother. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleague, Ayariga. Good morning to our viewers. Some of the view the national security should have been harsh with these threats. And harsh means silent and operated underground submarine. Others also feel it would mean that it's good to carry the population along, so we get to know and report any suspicious activity, as with the say-so of the slogan, see something, say something, you know, so that we all, awareness and consciousness is created amongst the populace. And as Dr. Bonaa said, in concentrated areas like the markets, the lorry parks and programs, the beaches and co, awareness is created so that if anybody comes around and looks suspicious, people can easily raise alarm, and then the person will be either apprehended or searched or whatever, so that we ensure that the people's security is paramount, and we will not be taken unaware. So the awareness issue of everybody getting involved, I think, is the right way to go. The nation, the Christian bodies have been informed, and we've been told they may come disguised as clerics, religious clerics, and other things. So let's watch out. And again, Dr. Bonaa has put it such that certain state installations, when we are assessing it, are we really scanned? Okay, coming to GBC, a very strategic installation, is there a scanning process to get you in? I may, because I understand too, it's not only going to be foreigners who will be coming, they are even recruiting our own indigenous people to be part of them. So what it means is that you may know the person, you think, oh, this person is not harmful, maybe I'm one of them. You get it, and so you take it for granted that that is George, so he's a patriot. You get it.
Maybe he's compromised.
He's compromised. Then what happens? You get it. So let's not lower our guards as far as security is concerned. And I agree with Doctor again that let's know, are we at the yellow stage, the green stage, or the red?
How many people even understand the stages in terms of the level of seriousness? I mean, if you are communicating and encouraging people to be part of the process, they need to appreciate even what they are dealing with. For example, if you are a citizen of the UK or America and you are told we are at category 2 or 3, you know what it means and what to do and what not to do, where to go, where not to go. In Ghana,
we don't even understand the security terminologies and all that. But now that the national security is involving the public, it's time we begin to educate the public on some of these things and what they mean, okay, so that citizens will be able to understand them and then communicate same to their colleagues and peers on the state of our security as of now. So let's continue to all be patriotic citizens. It's not about party or whatever. It's about security. If they hit a market, it can hit MPP, NDC, CPP. You know, our relatives are there. If it hits a lorry park, our relatives are there. So it's going to hit us. Okay, you'll be home thinking everything is sound, only to get information that that person, you remember the Nkranza thing, an MP's, you get it, it turned out to be an MP's cousin or nephew, you get it. So it's hitting him directly. So let's all be conscious and be involved to get the message across to everybody.
I'll give you the final bite on this one. What should we be doing from the point of us as citizens to support this whole drive?
Well, as we said earlier, there needs to be so much sensitization to let the public understand, especially people who also run businesses or certain events that people in terms of crowd management and what have you. Example, the malls, the churches, any point of convergence, there needs to be some level of sensitization, and the security also need to explain to the people or try to train them as to certain things to do, who looks suspicious, who doesn't look suspicious, how to handle certain events, how to respond to certain threats, and how to even understand how the threat is about to happen. But I just feel that we should go past the slogans. Every day there's a slogan for this, there's a slogan for that. This is a security issue. This is not COVID. This is not, a fight against polio or a fight against malaria, where you need so much media trying to drum the slogan home. This is about intelligence, and we need to up that aspect of it. We need to take our intelligence more seriously. For me, for you to be able to fight national security, the most important ingredient or element in that whole fight is intelligence. You can put together 1,000 soldiers to line up the streets of Accra and to stand at every vantage point, every church, every mosque, every mall, and if you do not have the required intelligence, at the end of the day, all those people stand there will result in nothing. So we need to invest so much in intelligence so that we can be able to actually preempt and stop some of these security threats or attacks. Otherwise, then we are just going into our usual charade of jamboree here, another slogan here, another slogan there, beautiful speeches here, beautiful speeches there, seminar here, conference there. That is not how I think we should approach the security threat. We need to fight it using our intelligence. Yes.
And my brother, his intelligence, which has gotten us where we are. His intelligence reports. And national security decided to carry the public along. It's intelligence that's gotten us here. I agree. Again, I think we need to begin to deploy plainclothes security officers to places that are concentrated. Okay, like he said, the malls, the Makola markets, the parks and co. At least 2-3 plainclothesmen within, also part of gathering intelligence to be able to stop any or preempt any attempt by anybody. Whilst the citizenry is looking out for any suspicious character, the expert, the professional security person can also be there and see. Okay, he will be able to see and identify faster than the ordinary person. So if we deploy them amongst the populace, I think it will also help.
Well, in the course of the week, we'll be moving on to some of the week's other important events. The Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu-Dampare, visited in Nkoranza over a week after violent clashes occurred in the town. Reports sent to us indicated that the family has welcomed the visit and so appreciative of the IGP and confidence in the police that the matter will be dealt with and justice will be served so that whoever is at fault can be dealt with to avert any sort of incidents like this one that we had. We know that one Albert Donko died and 6 others were injured as a result of a clash between the police and youth of Nkoranza following the death of Albert Donko, who died in police custody. The narrative or the narration has not been received well, and that has resulted in the upheaval in that part of the country. Investigations are ongoing into the matter to ascertain more details and be dealt with. Our correspondent Samuel Ayammah has been following up on the issue and will soon join us with some details as to how the family has received the IGP and the states of the town in terms of security following the incident. Samuel, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yes, thank you, Abdul.
Samuel, the IGP was in town yesterday or 2 days ago, and we are learning that the family were kind of excited for him to have taken time to visit them in the midst of all these challenges. What was the conversation like between the IGP and the family?
Yeah, the IGP, before his visit, even spoke with the family through phone call and then assured them that his outfit will put measures in place in ensuring that the whole investigation parents. And then at the end of the day, both sides, whoever that is guilty or be found culpable, will be punished. So the IGP, when he came, one thing that actually brought everything in the Kranza Township back to normalcy was when the IGP decided to abandon his vehicle and then walk through some principal streets of Kranza to visit the family of Albert Donko, Victor Owusu. From there, walk through other streets to the hospital to check on those who are still on admission there. And then to the Zongo Chief's Palace, to Zongo Chief of Kranza Town Palace. He also visited the people there, spoke with them, the Omahime Palace, and then the Omahime Palace, all in Kranza. Then he decided not to use his vehicle, but walk through there. So at the point, he started following. They were all following, chanting and singing praise, thanking him, and then commending him for that move. So all the residents in Kranza Township, those who are shops, those passerby, they have to all stop at the point and then even follow and then catch a glimpse of the IGP. So the message was clear. The IGP assured both families that they would be involved, especially the postmortem that will be done immediately. Both families will play a key role. So that because the families, they have been asking for an independent body to do the postmortem or conduct the investigation. But the IGP assured them that everything will be done in a transparent manner. All of them will be involved so that at the end of the day, they will not shield any thing that led to the death of Albert Donko and that of Victor Owusu.
What did you gather in terms of the leadership of the community where, for example, you said he visited the Zongo chief among other stakeholders? What have also they been saying?
Yeah, for the various opinion leaders, they were all happy that the IGP took that decision just to come because he earlier said the original chief commander, DCOP, Moses Abdul, and then later Director of Administration of the Ghana Police, Christian Tete, also led a delegation to the area, and then he also placed a phone call to the family and then followed up. So all the opinion leaders in the township that you visited, they were all happy about the move by the IGP. And then again, their request was just simple. They want justice for Albert Donko in particular, and then that of so we should, because for Victor, they were saying that did not seen or heard before police officers, instead of maybe firing tear gas or anything to disperse the riot youth, but rather firing live bullets to just disperse them. That was something that they described as unfortunate. But the IGP assured them, even though they placed a request before the IGP asking that those who are currently at the police custody, that they should release them. But the IGP told them that currently they have been put before court. They've gone to court for the first time and they'll be reappearing in court very soon. And again, to those police officers stationed at the Geoge hospital, the families were asking that they should also withdraw those police officers. And then again, there's some information going around that those on admission, when they are discharged, they will be also arrested. But the IGP said yes. For now, you cannot tell whether it is true that they are arrested or not. But even if they need be, they realize that some youth who are still in the town have some vital information that can share with them, they will go after them or they will bring them to the police station and then interrogate them, and so that they will not suffer or bring some difficulty in getting the truth behind the death or the cause of death of Albert and Victor also.
Thank you so much, Samuel, for bringing us up to speed on what's happening in the Bonaa region regarding the mayhem that we saw last week and the IGP's visit to engage the family and commiserate with them as investigations are ongoing. Ayariga, let me pick a thought or two from you and George quickly before we move on to the Achimota issue. The IGP was there to engage the family. I think quite commendable to help calm nerves.
I think first and foremost, I would just want to sympathize with the family and let them understand that in these trying moments, of course, the leaders of the nation are also grieving with them and sympathizing with them. So at least that would be able to curtail or control whatever mayhem or tension that will actually be visited or envisaged by the people of Ocancy. But most importantly, also, I'd want to touch a little bit on police professionalism. And so far as some of the brutalities are concerned, not just, picking this particular case, but you look at time past, you see how some, not all, some police officers have actually handled certain citizens or citizens of the land, sometimes unarmed crowd, normal journalists going out there to report how police handle some of them. I think the training of the police officers should be taken more seriously, and politicians especially should try as much as possible to hands off, especially when it comes to police recruitment. I think somewhere this year around February, we all chanced on a letter which was dated on 22nd February 2022, which has to do with some recruitment into Ghana Immigration Service, which had the chief of staff's letterhead saying they needed to recruit 500.
Which she denied.
Yeah, so I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. You see things like that. Then you also hear some politicians come out boldly boasting how they have recruited certain people into various police services. We've heard Kennedy Japan, we've had leading MPP members across the political divide. Not only with the MPP, but sometimes you can also hear some NDC members saying, oh, we needed a protocol here. I think some of these professional services should be allowed to operate professionally. Allow the required people, allow the competent people to go out there and do the professional work. Otherwise, if we decide to load some of these services with party foot soldiers, with people party, what we're going to experience is what happened at also West Wagon, where you have people dressed as national security operatives. At the end of the day, you realize that these are just bouncers, these are land guards who actually worked for the party to come to power. So at the end of the day, if we do not make sure that competence and actually people who are the right people for the right job are put at the right places, we are going to be experiencing some of this unprofessional happiness. I remember that during our time, we had our defense minister, Honorable Ben Kumbo, who said that people come to him saying that they want him to give them protocol into hospital to become nurses, and he thinks about it and says one day if he's driving from Wa to Tamale and he gets an accident, or he's involved in an accident and he goes to the hospital and it is that protocol nurse that is treating you, your guess is as good as mine, because you didn't put a competent person there, you didn't put someone who was qualified there, and at the end of the day the person only put there just because of a protocol or someone's phone call. So putting the parties aside, we actually have to look at some of these security services very well and very critically.
Okay.
You understand? Otherwise, at the end of the day, MPP will come in, they'll put their party foot soldiers there. NDC comes in, they also put some of their party foot soldiers there. And we are not looking at qualification, how qualified the person is, the training, the person has passed the training, and how actually mentally fit the person is to be able to handle such an office. Because if you put someone who is actually fit and you give the person a weapon to handle, then of course the person knows when and how to handle it. But if you just put anybody there, then it becomes a problem. So the police service needs to decouple itself from some of this political infiltration. Then they can train their people professionally to do a professional job. But most importantly, I sympathize with the family, and I think the IGP is doing a good job by going there, but he needs to stop it before even going to visit. If you are able to stop some of these things at your services or at your beck to be visiting most of these families for some of these mishaps.
Okay, let me bring in George. George, of course it's true, whether it's MPP or NDC, we can't run away from the fact that politicians have influence process of enrolling people into the security agencies, and that results in a lot of issues that we've seen in the past. And if we're able to deal with this, certainly it's going to help improve professionalism in the service.
Yeah, thank you. Enlistment protocol is part of the process everywhere in the world. That's protocol. You cannot rule out that fact.
But when competent
all
people,
students of infant swim school contribute to the building of the school, and you say because of school placement, so no old student is going to have that, leeway to get access. The school placement itself is made
the baseline is competence.
Yes, of course. nobody, let me tell you, nobody. When you even use protocol to go to any of the security service, you must pass the medical test. You must go through the process. Go check the army. Go check the police. You must go through. Okay? Yes, maybe some will say, oh, we know somebody who... You will get the protocol. But then the bar lies. If you are doing 10 rounds, all of you must do the 10 rounds. You must go for the health fitness. You must go for it.
Do you have the educational qualification? For example, if you the aggregate is 24 and you have 36 and you are enlisted, it means you don't even qualify in the first place. Whether you have
now, why do you even need a protocol? If you've qualified, why do you need a protocol?
No, but people who have qualification and still don't get access. Yes. Medical school, people have 7 ones and they don't get because over 10,000 people have 7 ones. And they are taking this. Yes. So I said the protocol, there will always be protocol with us. It's usage. Protocol is there. And then again, the chief of staff list is fake. I'm happy you got it. It was a lie. And people are just throwing things into the system. And so let's allow, and then people qualify. It's true that some MPs, and there's pressure. His brother is a senior member of parliament. Okay? There's pressure. You must, if you don't help your people to get jobs, well, lie. You get it. So they're under intense pressure. And even those of us in the political space, you get it. So it's there.
Is it justified?
You cannot say it's justified, but you can't also say you won't do anything about it. Okay? Your constituents need job. And you say you wouldn't take any step to help them if you can?
Even if it means breaking...
Oh, no, you make the advances and the overtures to see...
processes
no, not my influence. If you can talk to my brother, boy, you know, at least you're looking for 13. He has 14. Okay, can you help him? That's you, because you're a member of parliament. You're trying to see how you can help.
So all other students who are Ghanaian and have 14 because they don't know any member of parliament, it means they'll be denied.
No, let me tell you,
discrimination.
No, you see, let me tell you, and I'm saying protocol is there. People have had access. Let me tell you, these days there are some people who can call me and talk about issues of scholarship, okay? And sometimes sometimes I ask myself, why didn't I seize those opportunities when I was a student leader? Okay,
so why didn't you're able to get scholarships for people?
I'm talking about. He's asking you, say, the scholarship. And so go and apply. Put online. They've opened the portal. Put it in, okay, and go. But sometimes some of us were not aware of some of those opportunities. So then we need to get it down to our people in our constituency that opportunities are available. Some people don't know. You get it. And if you don't know, you can take advantage of it. Now let's come to the police this day. Look. It's worrying that I offend and I'm arrested. Where should I feel more secure? In the custody of the police? Of course. But to have a situation where I'm in the custody of the police and I can be killed, it doesn't send the right signals. It doesn't. I'm a barracks boy. I grew up in the barracks. But when I hear of some of these things, I feel bad. You get it? Why should it get to that point? Even if that guy is a criminal or a suspected criminal, once the police have gotten him, okay, then his security should be paramount. Okay, and he should even relax and feel more secure. We know that in the cell sometimes some things happen and cool, but not to the extent where the person will lose his life. Because there are different allegations that the boy was part of a gang, or he identified some people who were part of a gang and all that. So once
this has been the usual narrative.
Yes, you get it. So we don't have to let these things go uninvestigated and all that. And I'm happy the IGP himself is taking interest in this. Some say he likes the media. No, some of these things are important to assure the people.
Stakeholder money.
Yes, from Accra all the way to Nkwanza. You get it? It's good. The IGP himself is there. It shows you that at the highest point, they are interested in the matter. So the family itself will also be a bit...
But that can only be demonstrated if there is closure, because we've seen instances where the IGP has been on the ground and nothing
gone there. The investigation should continue, and then let's get to the bottom of the matter. And you, the media, these days you do fantastic. You don't the matter lie. After 1-2 weeks, you raise it again. You get it, and that is good. You see, you called your reporter. I know after 1-2 weeks, you will call that guy again. What is the update and all that? And these days, I commend the media for that. You don't, once the matter is gone to sleep, so you also no. You sit down after some time, you see that you rake the thing back, and then the discussion begins again. And that is good. And that will also put the IGP on his toes and the police force, especially on the back of the fact that we've had cases, bullion vans issues, and turns out to be involving
Zongo 7 in Ocancy.
You get it, the same officers who have to protect us. And so when we're getting some of these things, well, the last one, I commend them with this robbery, the old lady robbery in Dansoma. You know, because of CCTV and co, they are able to move fast and arrest the people. So it's good. The police, you're good, but citizens. And I understand the demonstration, 117-year boy, did he die or something? Yeah, it's also another. So let's not be trigger happy. Okay, they are demonstrating, but let's be patient. Before any little threat, you just pull the trigger and innocent people are dying. It's not good for our harmony as a nation.
It's still Weekly Press Review live on GBC News and on GTV. We go for a break. We return with more. Don't go away.
Saturdays for another stimulating journey across Ghana and Africa. Season 1 was spectacular and Season 2 well prepared to tell Africa's story in an exciting answer banter. They down. Who was flag bearer front party for the man of Mr. Victor Owusu. Don't let the Karimbu bus leave you behind. Join the trip to refresh your memories and learn a whole lot more.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ted Spear, pastor of the Fundamental Baptist Church International in Kumasi, Ghana. I'd like to welcome you to join us here on GTV every Saturday morning from 6:30 to 7 a.m. Please join us as we discuss the Scriptures each and every Saturday morning. God bless you.
Kings and nations tremble at His voice. All creation rises.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a good morning, and we serve you breakfast.
Not just any breakfast.
Sizzling helping.
And there's much more on offer on GTV Breakfast.
So what's your pleasure than Votras, yeah? At that time of the morning.
You want it served buffet style, complimentary breakfast,
On-site restaurant,
or room service?
we've got you covered.
From Monday to Friday at 6 a.m.
With a trusted team.
So never skip breakfast.
On GTV Breakfast.
Thank you so much for staying with us. It's Weekly Press Review, your #1 wrap-up analysis program. Well, the president, in the course of the week, made a bold statement, and it was captured on the front page of the Daily Graphic Thursday edition. This was yesterday. He says, as nation battles floods, demolish structures on water courses, President directs. Let me touch a bit on that story before we look at all that has been happening regarding the flash floods in the country in the last few days. President Akufo-Addo has directed the removal of all structures on water courses as a key intervention to stop the perennial floods in part of the country. He also charged metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives to ensure that with immediate effect every obstruction to the free flow of water as well as development along water courses is removed. The president gave the directive when he commissioned 2 dredgers and marine equipment by dredge masters, and of course in the last few days we've seen people bearing the brunt of the heavy downfall and losing properties, and in one instance a colleague journalist came to work, was somewhere reporting about floods, only to return home to realize that his room is also flooded. Quite he did a video on TikTok, quite a very disturbing situation. George, let me start with you. No, let's go on to this. Let's start with Engineer Francis Narteh Ocancy. He's Environmental and Water Resources Engineer, Ghana Institute of Engineers. He wants to take leave of us. George, I'll come to you for updates as to how we are dealing with this situation. But from the point of engineering, what can we do to prevent some of these occurrences? Engineer, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Well, you're welcome.
The president has directed that structures obstructing free flow of water should be destroyed so that there could be safe passage for water to avoid some of this situation. Is that the way to go?
We should hasten slowly, because if we don't plan, we plan to fail. So what we need to do, of course, the obvious ones sitting in the channel path, those ones can be demolished. But then we cannot demolish and leave the debris where they are. We shouldn't do it the way we were doing before, when we were desilting gutters, where we desil the gutters and just leave these heaps of sand by the roadside. That's why I'm saying that we first need to plan what we are supposed to do. Without it, it's going to be a job in futility. But for the assemblies who have the authority and the law to enforce where to do what, if they have given permits for people to build in certain locations, it is going to be difficult to go back and tell them that you are sitting, your structure is sitting on the waterway, so I have to demolish it, and that will create a lot of legal challenges. So I think we have to hasten slowly before we move ahead to go and destroy people's property, when already we know there's a huge housing deficit, which is the reason why actually people are encumbering on those lands.
Well, if you look at the issuance of permits from the Assembly's point of view, it's really a big problem that we are not dealing with, because if you are the outfit to ensure that people build in compliance with the laws and you are issuing permits for people to build on waterways, it's quite a major problem. And I was thinking, how should we be dealing with this from your point as an engineer?
Well, you know, all of these things start with the Spatial Planning Authority. They are close to the power to plan what is supposed to be on the land, where infrastructure is supposed to be situated. So if we had not done that, and people in the need to have their own place of abode would just go and acquire land from some owners and build, then that is where the problem is actually coming from. So the issues are a bit complex. We need to have a very good land title and ownership regime. Then Secondly comes the land use planning phase, then engineering processes should take place before people go and occupy their houses. Because even when you have to occupy your house, you need a certificate of occupancy, certifying that you have built the building according to standards and regulations. And all these processes, which is in a chain, are not actually happening on the ground.
Talking about standards, I've been wondering, more than 2 years after we ceremoniously launched the building code, we are still having this issue. Is it that the issue of poor implementation or enforcement, because we still have new structures built on waterways?
Okay, so we can go back to the 2015 National Spatial Planning Policy Framework, which sets out a certain guiding principle that the assemblies are supposed to buy into to regulate land use. Unfortunately, as with us as a people, we almost always have a problem with implementation. So the mandate that comes from the top for the assemblies to be able to do their work and the capacity to execute their work, because we are in changing times, they are not close with that. How do I say it? There's not a lot of momentum with them in delivering on what they are supposed to do with these MMDAs.
Well, so going forward, what do you think should be done? Because this has become an annual ritual. With the slightest drop of rains, we seem to be having this challenge. Do we need a whole restructuring as far as the drainage system of, for example, Accra is concerned, or there is a way we can get out of this problem? Because I remember clearly the former Works and Housing Minister talk about the billions of dollars that we need as a country to address this issue for Greater Accra alone, and we seem not to have committed resources in that regard. Is it issue of resources, or what can we do?
Well, issue of resources is part of the problem, but what we actually need is strong leadership with a vision. How do you want to see our environment? How do you want to see our neighborhood? How do we want to see our spaces and places? Do we want to have green spaces? Do we want to have fully concrete places, which is growing so much that it is exacerbating the runoff and the incidence of flooding? What do we want? We want to just see only concrete that is hardened up to the heat islands we find all over, where we can't sleep at night? No. So what we need to do is what I call the 4 S's approach, which is first S, store rainwater. That is, have a rainwater harvesting system. And we have a policy that is driving this thing, but it's also not happening. 2, we need to sink a lot of the water. So please stop this hard standing and the concrete. It's not pride to have all your house concreted. You should have green. It has effect on your eyes and your livability. So you sink, then thirdly, 2, you have to spread. Spread means that allow the path for the water to flow. Don't impede the channel for the water which is flowing. And also slow. That comes to the 4S. Slow down the rate at which the water is coming downstream. That means we need to have what in the terms we call swales, retention basins, and detention basins. So we need to actually have a new framework that will guide land use. Drainage is tied to land use. If we do not do these two together, certainly it is not going to work, and we are going to have this reoccurring problem every year, and it's going to get worse. Indeed, it's getting worse. So we need to act, put brains together, have a vision, support the budget, and get the people involved. Then I know something in the years to come.
With us, Engineer Francis Narteh Ocancy is Environmental and Water Resource Engineer with the Ghana Institution of Engineers. Thank you so much once more for... let's go to George quickly for what the National Disaster Management Organization is doing to address this concern. To what extent have you extended supports, relief items to the affected communities? which has become the ritual. We wait for the problem, we extend support, but we're not doing much to prevent the problem in the first place.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get to the relief supports and others. But I'm happy the engineer is touched on the critical points, the built area and the use of concrete instead of when we should be using greens and others, so that the water will percolate into the soil. And then issues of Ramsey sites and
of course
allocation of land
Ramsey sites, and they are very important to reduce these flooding and co, but unfortunately I think we'll get there another time. And so these are matters, and what is important, I agree, is to tackle the drainage holistically. In 2007, 2008, when President Kufuor took that bold step for the Alajo enclave, you get it, it reduced, it virtually stopped for some years before it started recently. And so we need to have that holistic approach to tackling the drainage issues in Accra. And so Garrett comes to mind. I have said I want to be a crusader for Garrett. Greater Accra Resilient and Integrated Development Project is about construction of drainage systems in Accra, 17 districts. So that it will allow the free flow of water, and if we're able to do that, we'll be able to reduce drastically the effect of flooding on Accra, and couldn't cost us $200 million, World Bank sponsored. Consultancy work is still going on, and so I pray that they fast track those processes. We at NADMO, some directors have been spoken to on our inputs and co. And if you look at things and then you read the June 3rd, 2015 report, most of the recommendations are what is going to be incorporated in Garrett. The retention ponds and all that is very key. The engineer said it, and see, so we have this. What we know what to do. What's our commitment? So far, government is pumped over 450 million. Remember that Ghana cedis into the management processes and then constructing some of the drains. Okay, and the process should involve. Okay, you need to put a master plan there and tackle the drainage system holistically, and that is Garrett. So if we continue to be managing and throwing huge monies away and still we are saddled with this, it's a problem. Again, the president had made a bold score. Right, but Sani, my brother, at this point, the assemblies, you said something interesting. It was engineer. They gave the permits, right? Okay, so now, as an order, they have the authority to say where you are built is waterway and it shouldn't be there. We are pulling it down. And he said it's not just pulling it down. You need to dig at the foundation level, because the foundation is already blocking it. So when you just pull it down and leave the debris there or the blocks there, you've done nothing. The problem will still be there. So let's get a way to tackle it. If we are pulling them down, let's pull them down. But can they go and start pulling them down, or they need a court order? You get it? Because I understand in law, when the property is even yours, he's here, he'll be able to help me. When the property is even yours and you look away for people to use it for a certain number of years, and you want to go back for it, you can't just take them away, because you saw them when they started. You didn't say anything, and they've ended
12 years or so.
You see, so now you have to go and battle it. Okay, so because the assembly itself was negligent, forgive my choice of word, and these things have sprung up, do they have to resort to court to get authority to go and do it? Okay, so these are matters
and
that
the court will be looking into. Did you grant permission in the first place? If you did, you are a state agency.
And then
the issues of
the critical
debt and this stuff will come in. That's as a cost to the state.
Yes, and the critical one too is the political cost. Okay, some even worry, yes, the president. But we, as a government, as a party, have the political will to go ahead, because you look at the consequences too. Because we are in a social environment.
You look at the safety of the citizens first before your political interest.
No. I'm looking at so are we going to go ahead, look into people? Sani, your building is there. I'm going to pull it down. I don't care who you are. My brother Ayariga, pull it down, pull everybody's, you get it. But the hard-earned commitment they made to get that facility there, because somebody didn't do his work well. Now all his money is going to go into the drain. We have to do something. But the price too, we look at it. Apart from the damages and all that, the political price, is the governing party ready to pay that? We must be ready. I had said that in Accra, if we want to make progress. That's why we had people like G. Blankson and Abojise Oko. We need such people. You get it. But sometimes it gets to a point closer to politics and there's some breaks coming. And you see that their works, they begin.
That has been the problem.
That's been the problem. And it's because these two guys, if we had allowed them to go on all out to do their work. You remember Salifu Amangwa? Those days. Second, who born you? You get it. So these two guys, we had allowed them to go all out. I don't think we'll be saddled with what we are saddled with today. So we're not more with seeing some issues on the relief. We deployed men to go and help, search and rescue. We've had distress calls all over. And so when we get them, we deploy men to go and help. People trapped by the flood, you go and bring them to safety, falling trees, and then, sometimes we need to put inflated boots on the water to get them to safety. We've done this, but sometimes we look at it. It's not all that we bring relief support immediately. You get it. It's not, we look at your livelihood gone as a result of that flood water. Okay, if it's not gone and you go back to work, it's not about it. But if your mattress and co are gone, those one we can bring you some.
Okay, thank you, George. I'll give another bite.
Well, my brother, I am particularly disappointed in all of us as a country. 65 years down the line, and today we are talking about floods after maybe 2 hours, 3 hours of downpour. Disappointed in the engineers and also disappointed in the politicians. Disappointed in engineers because I'm an engineer myself. I'm an architect by profession, even before law. So we just go about and make a blanket statement. Don't build on waterways. Let's pull down the buildings. We are in the 21st century. Go out there. You have huge buildings sitting on drains because they have constructed the drains in such a way that you can have a multi-story building sit on a drain and the water flows smoothly. That is an advanced country. That is how you develop, because they have a plan. They have the engineers. And sometimes even the building, the assembly tells you that then you need to construct that drain beneath your building before you can now put the building on top of that drain. That is how you develop. So you don't leave everything to the assemblies to construct every drain. For example, if someone has a piece of land around GBC where maybe he wants to construct a fuel station and there's a drain there, so the assembly makes sure that instead of just making a blanket statement that no buildings on a drain, they give maybe 2 kilometers of drain to construct before you can come and construct your fuel station. Then you would have solved part of the drainage problem. But to just make a blanket statement, no drains here, let's pull this building down, let's pull that down. I mean, those were the days of Gorgeous Bay. I mean, we have advanced, so we should be able to understand the architecture and the spatial development of how we should go about it. Now, the second part is the president's rhetorics. We have heard too many of these rhetorics about how much has been put into works and housing. Don't forget, just before he started the second term, the works and housing minister came out to tell us how his ministry was not funded to fight some of these floods, how he wasn't funded to construct most of these drains. In addition to that, don't forget that in our petroleum sector, every liter of fuel we buy, there's a component that has been assigned to sanitation, which is supposed to be going to the Ministry for Sanitation that the president decided to create. I don't know what the Ministry of Sanitation has done so far, because they were also in charge of making sure that some of these places were well catered for. You go to Hydrological Service. Last week, Hydrological Service spoke on this matter. They budgeted to construct 117 kilometers of drains. So far, they've done just about 11 kilometers. So this is not just about talk. And he knows that. It's not just about the rhetorics. It's about being committed. The finance minister being committed to be able to allocate some of these statutory funds. Otherwise, why would we be talking about drains? If Hydrological Service had constructed 117 kilometers of drains that they anticipated, planned to construct, I don't think we would have been talking about some of these drains. At least it would have reduced the impact or the way some of these drains are happening. But if we go about the usual rhetorics, naming them, giving them slogans, interested in podiums, the plum and pageantry, next year we will be back here talking about flood. Don't forget, even during our time, a private company, engineers and planners, decided to dredge the Odo River for us free of charge using its expertise. The government, of course, was to provide the equipment and the fuel to be able to fuel some of these trucks. Ayisi and his party went head over heels making noise that was corruption, so we stopped. But today, what are we seeing? Even today, they haven't been able to dredge the Odo River. And the Odo River is still there. It hasn't been dredged. He's still there dredging. How many years? 6 years down the lane, you are still dredging the Odo River. So that's what I'm telling you that. I'm coming. Please, it's when you were speaking, I was quiet. So let us move from the usual rhetorics. The president to fighting the Accra floods. He promised us that he was going to change Accra in 18 months. We are in his 6th or 7th year, and nothing has happened. He's still roaming, and now he's telling us that it's about people's attitude. When this government underperform, they tell us that it is our attitude. Yet they are able to tell us it's about the incompetence of the government and their lack of commitment to some of these things they're supposed to do. So Mr. Ayisi and his president should stop the usual rhetorics and fight the floods. They should be interested. They should be interested in constructing the drains. All time will permit us on this issue. Yes, let's it or not, the people's attitude should be addressed. The Office of the Special Prosecutor is investigating the alleged unlawful acquisitions of government lands by a former chief executive of the Forestry Commission, Kojo Usufri, popularly known as Sir John. In a statement on Thursday, the Special Prosecutor, Kisia Jabin, said the investigations will deal with suspected corruption and corruption-related offences in respect of alleged improper and unlawful acquisition of states' property at the Achimota Forest Enclave and the Ramsar catchment at Sakumono in Accra by the late Sir John. The investigations followed a public uproar over a leaked will on social media that the late Sir John had allegedly willed many acres of the Achimota Forest and the Ramsar area to his family members and others. This has generated controversy both on social media in our localities, and it's still raging. The matter is taking a legal twist, and we are all watching to see what turns about. Let me start with you, George. You are saying there is no acquisition. What do you mean by that?
You can only will something that you own. It's yours, right? Or it's been bequeathed to you. You get it? And now, I don't know the Achimota Forest to anybody. Okay, so how come Sir John is, you know,
there are developments on the peripherals of the Achimota Forest?
Yes, I don't know, the old family thing. Yeah, the old family thing. So how, you know, I'm speaking purely on things that are contained in the supposed leaked will, okay, of the late Sir John. And so I'm asking, my brother is here, he understands law, so he will be able to assist us small. Is it possible that he can will something to when he had not acquired that?
On what basis are you saying it has not been acquired?
Yes. Nobody has sold the Achimota Forest. And then from Professor Mills to J. Kufuor to, from President Kufuor to Professor Mills to His Excellency John Mahama to our government today. To get the old family to get this thing back. So, under what circumstances that is willing to
the Ramsar site too that was captured in the will.
So that's the Ramsar site is a different matter.
So you agree the same will that was leaked, you agree with the Ramsar portion, but you disagree with them?
I'm not agreeing. I'm saying, I don't know, there may be a different process of acquiring the Ramsar this thing. I don't know what it is. But the Achimota one, I'm having difficulty. So because I understand the Lands Commission says there's no evidence that he owns those lands. Okay? It's been given to, there's no evidence in their records. Okay? So how do you will those things? So it's void ab initio. void ab initio, but maybe the law student will be able to explain it better. Now, going forward, it's worrying. I've said that aspect, but it's worrying as a politician, Sani. Let's put everything aside. If indeed the contents of that is true, it doesn't speak well of us as politicians. We are to hold assets of the state in trust of the people, well, for the people, right? And so if we begin to say we're going to possess them and bequeath them to our, it's not good. So I'm happy.
On one breath you disagree, another breath.
No, legally, I made a legal argument that the thing it doesn't look possible to me.
I will only agree with you.
I
will only agree with you if you are.
I'm speaking on hypothetical note now. Go ahead, Sani.
Fine.
Yes. So it's difficult to happen. That's what the first context is. Now,
but it could happen because we've seen state lands and properties.
That one they've grabbed it is a different matter. But this one, there's no way you can grab it because it's not been given to anybody yet.
Land being sold at 9,000 cities and less.
Yes. No, Westlands. Just go and see the politicians who are living there. They are all wetlands, but it's been given to politicians. Go and see. In fact, top politicians from his family, their names are named after streets. Not his family, as in otherwise. I know the stuff.
NDC.
Yes, the NDC stuff. You get it. So we're all guilty, but it's not the best. You get it. So going forward, I'm happy the Honourable learned lawyer Abu Jinapor, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, says we should delve into that. And once he's been assured that Lands Commission says there's no record to show, say John. So if you don't own it, how can you give it out? But he will give us the legal contestation on that to see whether it's feasible or not. But after having made that, I'm saying if we politicians are engaged in some of these things, it's not good for us and our people, because the people trust us to hold the assets of the state in trust for them and protect same for them. And then we think our families are more important than every other person. Then becomes problematic.
Now
last one.
Just before we come with the last one, we don't have much time.
Okay.
If you look at the two statements released by the Lands Ministry, signed by the minister, it indicates as if it's a fresh issue that nobody is aware of anything about it and is asking for. Then I'm asking the same questions or information he's seeking to get from the investigation. At the time that the government was approving for the portions of the Achimota forest, the peripherals to be released to the old family, these questions were not necessary to be asked for the purpose of due diligence.
Which question?
For example, who the old family released the lands to in the first place.
But nobody
secondly, the portion in terms of the acreage.
Yeah.
The NDC, last week we had the minister here in the studio, the former minister, Inusa, who said it was 118, they agreed. How come 361 now?
Oh, that is a political decision or whatever. They've gone to court, and so if the next government feels based on the petition, based on the petition they've brought, and it's within the remit, and where they are the protectory zones for the forest will not be affected, and they are increasing it. That is a different matter. They do the legalese to get those things sorted. But once the authority is there to grant them those increase, I don't see what the problem will be. But again, the other aspect to that, you say you should know that they won't know until you go into the details. You won't know. Okay, when there's a gentleman's agreement between the Wu family and Ayariga that they'll give him 10 plots, and they've given him same. Okay, they fulfill their part. So they are waiting that when it's handed over to them, then those processes to give him the entitlement can commence. It's a possibility. The last one, Sani, is you spoke to someone, I think he's an architect, there's some conservationist, experts and co. The fear, we are now grappling with flood in Accra. Now these Achimota cover is protecting Jowulu and others, you know that. Jowulu is a value. It's a flat area, but it's now a prime area in Accra. Now, if we take that cover, the consequences downstream.
George, you're not done with your sentence. Sometimes
he has understood me. He has telling his people. He has understood me.
You should be telling his people in government. You can't be joining us to
I'm not complaining. I'm saying the advising is more of the reason.
Yes. You have a voice in government, and
that's more of the reason why. Let's say the NDC granted 118.
Yeah.
Based on this very important subject you've touched on, we tend to increase the acreage to 100 to 361 when we know the value to the environment and to the health of the people.
I don't know which parts that have been added to make it that. Is it the Noga Hill enclave down Jowulu area, or it's the Abofu enclave going this way? You know, I don't have those details. But the warning, the advice from the conservationists, which I agree with as a disaster person, is that we should be careful with look at releasing that.
Because
when you release it and it's cleared, you know, the green is protecting. The engineer said it. You get it? It's protecting. So it's a cover for all of that.
Especially now, when we have just returned from COP26, where we went and made pledges.
Yes. Glasgow. Climate change.
And we are here to share 360 acres of land. The president went with 330 people to go and speak on climate change, just to come and give out 360 acres of forest. So you see, most importantly, to touch on Sir John's will, I am particularly scandalized at the response coming from most especially the NPP communicators. You see, Sir John, God bless his soul, was a lawyer of good standing and a member of the Ghana Bar for over 30 years. He has been practicing law for over 30 years, even before he became General Secretary. But today, the NPP, in the absence of Sir John, want us to believe that Sir John did not even understand the basic principle in law of Nemo Duct, saying that you cannot give what you do not have. They want us to believe that Sir John has put in his will to be given to his nephew what Sir John didn't have. They want us to believe that Sir John, in his right senses, knew that I didn't have this land. I didn't have this land. No, as for the will, it is correct.
Okay.
The will is in court, not because of the authenticity of the will, but as to the formula and family food. So the NPP wants us to believe that Sir John, sitting down in his right senses, didn't know that I cannot will what doesn't belong to me. That is the NPP's own narrative. That is the story the NPP wants us to be. It's rather unfortunate. This was no mean a person, but your former General Secretary. You want us to believe that he wasn't in the right frame of mind when he was putting that will, his final. How can I, George Ayisi knows that he cannot will even this mark to anybody because it doesn't belong to him. George Ayisi, who is not a lawyer, a mathematician, knows that he cannot will what doesn't belong to him. But today the NPP wants us to believe that Sir John, who was a lawyer and who himself drafted various wills for his clients, today decided to will what didn't belong to him. This is
so that he causes tension in his absence.
I just don't understand the NPP and their current posture so far as Sir John is concerned. But of course, he's dead and gone, so they can use him as a collateral damage. Now, the second thing I want us to also understand is that, you see, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources came out with another very blank statement saying that they have checked the Lands Commission records and Sir John doesn't own any land in the Lands Commission. Of course, in the Achimota Forest. Of course, if you go and search, you won't find any land in Sir John's name because Sir John didn't even put in his will that the land. So the company's name, DML Limited, JK Pro Limited, have the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources come out to tell us that these companies do not own any land so far as that will is concerned. No! So then they should come back and tell us whether the companies in the will of Sir John that were named as those holding those lands actually have lands in the Achimota Forest and the Ramsaya site. Yes or no? Then we can open up the discussion. But you do not come out and try to be intelligent and think that the rest of us do not think by telling us that Sir John doesn't own it. Of course he doesn't own any land. In addition to that, we live in Accra, where people even put up buildings, live in their building, and do not even have title to the land. Go to East Legon, go everywhere, because of how sometimes the land tenure system used to be very cumbersome and the litigation. But for now, they are trying to, rationalize everything, try to sanitize everything. People have lived in their homes for 30 years. If you even go to the Lands Commission to check, you won't see their names there, but they live in those places. Coming now to tell us that you have checked at the Lands Commission and you cannot find Sir John's name there, so for that matter, Sir John doesn't own any land. I think it's I don't use the word lousy, but it's one of the unfortunate response you can give to the good people of this country.
What do you make of us?
In addition, yes. So I mean, the position, yeah. So a senior lawyer, and you want us to believe that the senior lawyer was so unintelligent that he didn't own land, but he willed it to somebody.
Lawyer, minister.
So he's not senior to Sir John.
No, he's senior to you.
No, but I haven't disrespected him in any way. I've only said what I think is the right thing. So the other issue has to do with the investigation he's talking about. I do not and cannot sit here for a microsecond believe that a ministerial commission will do this country any good, because of course it is his government. The minister has to come out and whitewash the government.
No, we are not whitewashing.
So what we have also asked for is a bipartisan parliamentary committee to go into the matters concerned, so that they can even call the minister, call everybody, call the companies involved, call all the beneficiaries of Sir John's will, call everyone involved. Let us see who has what in that forest, who has bought what in that forest, who has interest in that forest, so that we all, Ghanaians, everyone, you, me, him, everyone can see and know who have bought lands there. I don't care if it's an NDC member, let us name and shame them. I don't care if it's an MPP member, let us name and shame them, because you cannot be given the mandate to hold in trust for the good people of this country, and yet you want to erase for yourself and your generation. It's unprofessional. It's despicable.
Alluded to
yes. As for that, and you see, they come out and tell us, oh, government officials are having bought any land, but we know the simple architectural design as far as that corrupt act is concerned. You get a company, the company buys it in your name. How you can have
company buy as of now?
No, companies can own land. Companies, not particularly that. I'm just telling you the simple architectural design so far as corruption is concerned, especially grabbing of land. They don't go with their name. So today, if the lands minister wants to buy land, he won't put his name there. He will go and get a company. Yes.
We saw the PBA having companies.
He has shown interested, so let's allow him.
You understand? So you that is what politicians do. You get a company, the company buys it for you, and when you are done with office, you find a way, you have an agreement with the company, and it's brought back to you. So this kind of corruption.
I read something on Facebook. I mean, it gained traction. People asking, is it the case that because there were a lot of government people owning portions of the land, that was why the acreage was increased from what the NDC granted, 118 to 361?
I can't say that be the reason. I don't know the reasoning behind the increase, So I let the OSP and other.
Is it possibly to shield many people who
No, but you
benefited?
Cannot own it until the whole family is when they get it, they can then give you something or sell something.
Could it be the case that
for now,
in this case, which is under investigation, the companies that Sir John listed in that alleged will bought it on his behalf?
How did they buy it? From who? Because Achimota Forest was not for sale. The whole families petitioned government. Now because compensation were given for not all the land acquired, give us back some so we can use, because the law says if you don't use it for the purpose, you revert, right? And so based on that, and government saw reason, that's government from President Kufuor to Professor Mos to John Mahama to Nanado, saw reason that and it's been increased. So now when they get it, before then they can decide to either sell or whatever. But how come companies have bought some? How did they buy it? From who? Who did they pay the money?
The old family, for example,
to the Forestry Commission or what?
In their releases indicated that even though portions of the land were granted to them, they have not been able to sell and do so. But we know there are structures.
They can't sell till they finish the deeds. Everything is concluded.
So the structures on the peripherals of the Achimota forest, who gave them the land? How did they acquire it? Because there are ongoing structures there. If the
you know the forest, you know Gimpa is within the forest. There are other places because government released some for, but in fact that town right at the end there after the golf course, is it whatever some question? No, the other right after the school inside there, you know, it's supposed to be all Christian village area there. You see, but people have settled there, so they've released some. So let's see how the rest is managed. Once it's not sold, that's why I say John couldn't have owned it. You get it? But as for the leasing, maybe it's anticipation that when the processes are concluded, maybe it's
just mischief. We said the land. You know, when we started this whole
my land,
we said the land there.
ABC. Yes. That's how it was captured in.
But it wasn't sold to anybody. You get it? Or once you become policy commissioner, you have some portion. Is that it?
How did he acquire it?
Yes, that's why it was
assigned to those.
You get it? That's why it's
assigned to those companies for his interest.
No, how did the companies get it? Because the only haven't gotten it. It is the only family that can give it to you.
You keep asking how did they get it?
Yes.
How did they get it? I don't think that is a question for us to be answering. We have shown to you that Mr. ABCD has land here, and these are the allegations we already put out that government is selling the lands and sharing.
Government is not selling.
Within Achimota forest. Now we have brought out a document to show that Mr. ABC actually has land in the Achimota forest.
But gentlemen,
and you don't want to ask us how
we have less than a minute to leave.
Somebody said he had the president in his pocket when you didn't have it.
It is really a big problem that as recent as 1999, when this whole redevelopment of Accra came up, and the late Jacob Echebi Lamte, we know how this litigation till 2009 to 2010.
He won the case.
When portions of land were sold to politicians at fees that do not make sense with the greatest due respect. You wonder how people are managing state resources, and this is almost with all regimes. And I was wondering how we can continue to entrust our properties as a state into the hands of politicians, because it appears we are not taking good care of it.
Well, I don't know if we are not taking good, but we should show more responsibility. We should show more concern to that we care and ready to protect the properties of states in the interest of the people as politicians. The Jake issue was government, you know, big land with small building in there, you know. You go to cantonments and co. When we're growing up, you go there, it's forest. So that they want those places to be redeveloped for more rooms to be there for people to occupy. And then, you know, but I agree with you. If you mention the price that it went for sometimes, and it's going to become an individual's personal property, it's worrying.
Recent as 2004, 2005, 2003, there were lands at East Legon that were sold at 9,000 cedis. Even if you look at it from the point of inflation,
my brother,
it's worrying. And that's why the president said he was going to cancel that issue of buying your own cars and all those things. Some went for 5,000 cedis.
My brother, you see, it's very sad, especially with the MPP. I've heard people say it happened in both regions, but I'm yet to hear of an NDC minister who bought his house in cantonments also, or anywhere. I'm yet to hear that. I haven't heard that anywhere so far, and I'm yet to hear of NDC officials who bought land across board.
Go to Westland.
Please. I am yet to see a list of NDC former appointees where land was given to them. We all saw what happened under Kufuor's regime, where there was a list under the Ghana International Hostel lands around the airport there, where you see names of prominent people.
In that same list, you find.
I haven't seen. I'm telling you what I have seen.
Because the portion that you are speaking about,
I'm telling you what I have seen.
The latter part of the same document.
I am
telling you what I have seen.
You are choosing what is convenient.
I'm telling you what I have seen. I mean, you can't tell me what to see and what not to see. I'm telling you what I saw.
It's not right.
So I have seen the list of his former appointees there selling land and sharing the land, buying it at chicken change. I mean, serious lands bought at 9,000 cedis, 5,000 cedis. I mean, we ought to change our attitude as government. So we just want to assure the good people of this country, especially with the NDC, and John Mahama also assure the good people of this country that, I mean, the sale of land and the grabbing of state lands, obviously, is not a thing that the NDC would want.
Go and check
and former government appointees decide to share lands, buy the bungalows in which they live in.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
I trust the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources to do the right by all of us as far as the Achimota Forest is concerned, and I'm happy the OSP has also taken
time certainly will
tell. He has 2 acres there. He has 2 acres. He has 2 acres in the forest.
Gentlemen, for your time. This has been Weekly Press Review, your #1 wrap-up analysis program. Same time next week. Join us as we discuss the major headlines in the papers. My name is Sani, Abdul Rahman, and we'll be back next week, same time, Tuesday.